All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's live stream. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that is, in my opinion, exciting. It can be sometimes a little bit scary to people, maybe a little frustrating. We're going to be talking about the marriage of writing and creativity and, creating really great, engaging content and also doing that while thinking about SEO, right? So how do we sort of take these two goals of creating really great content and also creating content that sort of satisfies the search engines and checks all the boxes from an SEO perspective, and how do we put those together without sacrificing on either end, right? That's a difficult challenge and one that I think pretty much anyone in the content space is probably acutely familiar with. So today, our host is Bernard Huang from ClearScope. And so he's going to be sharing with us strategies, tips, tactics for how to integrate these two things and really build a cohesive workflow for creating, again, engaging, creative content that also works from an SEO perspective and is really optimized for search to drive traffic, rankings, conversions, etc. So super excited to dig into that. Before we get into it, before I bring Bernard on, I do want to make my usual quick pitches. So first and foremost, I have to give an extra shout out to Bernard and the ClearScope team. Not only are they presenting the content today and hosting this workshop with us, but they're also a presenting sponsor for Top of the Funnel, our community, and they're supporters of our group. So huge shout out to them. Of course, you'll be learning a little bit about ClearScope in the session today, but if you've not already checked them out, please do so. Secondly, if you're not already a member of Top of the Funnel, our community would love to have you there. It's a free Slack community. You can join by visiting yesoptimist.com/tofu. We cover all things content marketing, SEO, inbound. There's freelance folks, agency owners, in-house marketers, all kinds of people in there sharing knowledge, asking questions, learning from one another. So would love to have you join our community, Top of the Funnel. Please pop in. That's where you'll be the first to learn about upcoming sessions, live streams, etc. And yeah, it's just a great community, lots of super smart people in there and lots to learn. Finally, two last calls to action. One, go ahead and like the video just to help other people find it. And two, if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, I would also encourage you to do that, as we have a huge catalog of past workshops and Q&As with really smart people on content marketing and SEO, as well as a bunch of great upcoming sessions talking about everything from content and SEO to zero volume keywords and all kinds of great stuff that's in the lineup. So definitely subscribe here, check that out, and would love to see you on a future session as well. My only last comment is we would love to get feedback, questions, etc. during this session. So please feel free to pop questions, comments, thoughts, ideas into the chat. We will try to respond to those as best we can, either during the session today or at the very end if we have time for questions. So go ahead and pop those in as you have them. Why don't you go ahead and say hi right now? That'd be great. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Bernard, and we'll get things started.
Hello. Hey, Tyler. Hello. Thanks for having me. Definitely subscribe to Top of the Funnel. Tyler's been doing an amazing job just gathering the best and the brightest, and I'm honored. I know I kind of shortcut my way on by also being a sponsor, but that said, I do have a lot of good stuff planned for today's workshop. Again, I'm going to say it's a workshop. I want us to work together on looking at what's happening and how you can use a culmination of robot-based AI and just manual common sense to blend together and marry how SEO and content in the future could look. So with that in mind, let me start sharing with y'all my screen. Let's do this here. Okay, and got the infinite thing. Cool. So first things first, I think that we should go through a live example of what classical SEO has looked like in the past. here's where I'm going to bring up a nice little notepad, or we'll jot down what a typical workflow looks like in terms of an SEO-driven content strategy. As I'm sure a lot of you are aware, every good SEO-driven content strategy typically begins with keyword research. Now, when it comes to keyword research, there's a lot of tools out there that do great keyword research. You have Ahrefs, you have SEMrush. ClearScope helps a bit with keyword research, and we'll come into that in just a second. So let's pretend for a second, and I use this example quite a bit during our onboarding calls to illustrate a lot of different ideas on what's happening in Google search. So the example is, let's pretend for a second that we're a skincare products company, and we help people get rid of pimples. Well, you can imagine that we would love to rank for the head keyword, how to get rid of pimples, like this. Now, if we were to do some basic keyword research using any of the tools, you'll quickly find out that how to get rid of pimples is essentially the head topic in the sense that it gets the highest amount of monthly searches. I forget, I'm in Google UK. Let's take a look at Google United States. So for the United States, I believe the monthly search volume, you can see here, will come out to about 40,500, like this. Now, right, in a classical SEO strategy approach, you can imagine a lot of people might create a piece of content that just generically targeting the exact match keyword, how to get rid of pimples. You can imagine if you took it one step of clickbaitiness forward, you might get something like this, 12 best ways to get rid of pimples. And then one last thing, you can imagine the other approach that people might take is going to be a topic cluster, and it could be like ultimate guide to getting rid of pimples, like that. So this is going to be the majority of what you would expect from a classical approach to SEO. Now, if we're to take a look at the search results, and I'm going to do this in incognito, which means that there's not going to be any personalizations associated with the search for this, how to get rid of pimples, you'll notice that the type of results that we see showing up in the search results, should you look at them a little bit closer, they're going to have gravitated towards this intent, as people call it, that people want to get rid of pimples quickly, right? You see here 6 ways to get rid of pimples fast. You see here this health line says natural and fast. You'll see an indented search result that says powerful home remedies. You'll see here fast, generic, how to get rid of pimples. You see this YouTube showing up. It says in one day, which you can assume is pretty fast. Overnight, which is also pretty fast. And then 9 things to try when acne won't clear. Well, guess what we have as some of the most popular Google autocomplete suggestions that surround how to get rid of pimples. You'll see here things like overnight and fast show up quite a bit. The most interesting thing, however, is if I were to perform the other search for how to get rid of pimples fast on the left, you'll notice that you get exactly the same results, just slightly reordered, right? So Saguaro Derm, top result. You have Glamour. This is going to be what you see over here, like this. You have Very Well Health, same result here. You have this Healthline result, same result there. If we scroll down some more, I think this Medical News Today probably doesn't quite make the cut today. So a lot of the same top results are sharing the same keyword between these two searches. Now, a lot of people might take a look at this and say, well, Bernard, Glamour, Healthline, Very Well Health, right? These are authorities. They've built a lot of backlinks and all that good stuff. But what about Saguaro Derm, right? That one's not as high of an authority as you would expect from something like Healthline or Very Well Health. I have a different idea then of what's been happening in Google search. So let's take a look at this idea of what machine learning is doing to Google search results and how that should be influencing how you think about content creation strategies moving forward. So you can imagine Google's always trying to improve their algorithm, and they've updated the algorithm with tons of AI, machine learning, and all that good stuff. So Google is essentially trying to test to see whether or not they can construct search engine results pages that engage the user. You can imagine then a thought experiment could look like this. Back in the day, users performed searches for how to get rid of pimples. And back in the day, Google might have tried a set of 10 search results that targeted the exact match keyword. Now you can imagine those users likely clicked on some of these results, but a non-trivial amount of those users were unsatisfied. So what did they do? They went back to Google and performed an additional search. You can imagine back in the day, you probably got a list of search results that targeted that exact match keyword like this. And those users clicked on some of these results and found what they were looking for, or we would say concluded their search journey. Now, Google's search algorithm is going to take a look at this as the user journey that a searcher had to perform to arrive at the answer to their question. And they're going to go, all right, well, I mean, if the user is finding what they needed here, why wouldn't we take the end result and try that as part of our search engine results page for the head topic? So you can imagine that an algorithm update happens. And now you see this intent surface as the top result. Well, lots of users likely performed the search, how to get rid of pimples, saw, wow, fast. How did Google know? That's exactly what I cared about. They clicked on that result, and guess what? They concluded their search journey without having to perform an additional search. What's happening then over time is that you can imagine search engine results are gravitating towards intent with the highest likelihood of concluding search journeys. So this, as an example, is designed to illustrate 3 distinct ideas. Idea number 1 is going to be monthly search volume is no longer indicative of size of opportunity. Now you heard Tyler mention, right, there's zero search volume. This is exactly why zero search volume exists, because users have intents that they don't even know. They perform the search and they say, wow, you know, that's actually better than what I'd expected. So in this particular case, we have how to get rid of pimples fast. The top results that are ranking for how to get rid of pimples fast are essentially what's actually capturing the majority of the head topic. Interestingly here, you'll see that Healthline has 2 results, an indented result as well, natural and home remedies. You'll see here, if we're to take a look at the search volume, there is actually, I think, a little bit of search volume. It doesn't even make the front page of this anymore. But yeah, how to get rid of pimples naturally. Get to meager 390 monthly searches. Yet, if I were to perform the search again in incognito, guess what you have? There's rank number 1 over here, powerful home remedies, which is exactly the same result that you see over here on the right. Same thing with this natural ways as fast as possible, right? 4 natural ways as fast as possible. So users are caring about naturally and quickly. Example or point number 2 is that Google Autocomplete suggestions are strong indicators of searcher intent. Now you'll notice, right, lots of people in SEO have been running around saying intent. You got to care about intent. Intent is, you know, the new backlink or something like that. We'll see here, if I have to do a space for the search on the right, how to get rid of pimples, Google's saying, okay, user, should you want to perform an additional search for how to get rid of pimples, you probably want to get rid of pimples overnight and naturally. Well, Google is very smart at understanding subsequent searches, because we use Google all the time to search for all kinds of different things. Therefore, if we take a look at specifically what Google is autocomplete suggesting, we can actually infer the likely intents that the user is going to care about surrounding this particular topic. ClearScope uses keyword discovery simply by scraping Google autocomplete suggestions, and you'll notice related searches. Related searches in this example, this is why I'm using this example, have already merged together with the head topic, how to remove pimples naturally and permanently, how to remove pimples permanently overnight in an hour fast. You can see that this has already been exactly what the search engine results page is mirroring in terms of what the user cares about. The last idea, this might stoke a little bit of fires, is going to be this idea that topic clusters. And first, let's get on the same page about what topic clusters are. You probably know topic clusters, and sometimes they're called pillar pages, parent pages, or hub pages. These are going to be your ultimate guide to X, X 101. What is X? Everything you need to know about X. And they usually have this H1 that starts with what is X. These types of pages are starting to lose relevance in the algorithm. Why? Because, again, these types of pages are too broad. I used to have a really good example from a website. I think it might have been like a Medical News Today or something like that, where it would be this one. And this one, in the past, if you went to, I guess, like, Wayback Machine, it would actually start with this section right here, like, what is acne? And you can imagine that if a user is performing a search for how to get rid of pimples, they know what a pimple is. I didn't come to your page to learn about what is a pimple. They just want to get rid of pimples as quickly as possible. So the reason, in my opinion, that these types of pages are starting to lose relevance is that they're too much of a broad brushstroke across an entire topic, right? In the sense that they're like, okay, you might want to know what it is, what causes it, blah, 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 but they're not really doing a specifically great job at answering a specific intent that the user cares about. Now, that's to say that there's still a place and time for topic clusters. You still see them do really well, especially when you're targeting just broad, high-level head topics. But again, we're starting to notice that the algorithm is kind of giving less weight to these types of pages. In the past, you might have seen 10 results on the front page that all were topic clusters. Now, maybe it's dwindled down to 6 or 3. It really depends on the search being performed and how competitive the query is. All right, so all of this is to say, keyword research in a classical sense is clearly outdated. If what we're seeing, if a user performs a search for a subtopic and it ranks for the head topic, we can't just rely on keyword research alone. This is why we recommend, and this is more of now the half art kind of science component of how to approach SEO, is a search intent discovery. Now, what the heck is a search intent discovery? That's a great question. So a search intent discovery entails Googling the target keyword, and count the number of occurrences of each intent that you see. All right, so I'm going to do this live for how to get rid of pimples. But in the back of your mind, I want you to start thinking about some of the examples that you want done live, because I think that perhaps this is the most important step to a content creation workflow that people consistently get wrong. They either create content around the incorrect intent because they want to promote their product or service, or they just don't even consider the intent before starting their piece of content. So to do this live, right, a search intent discovery for how to get rid of pimples, in my book, it kind of looks like this, right? We'd say, okay, how to get rid of pimples. Let's go back to the front page. We have this saguaro derm, and it's answering the intent fast. So we have one idea of fast. You'll see here a result that's not the featured snippet is going to be Healthline. They say natural ways to get rid of pimples as quickly as possible. So that's an intent for fast. And you can assume that that's another intent for naturally, like this. You'll see here Healthline again has home remedies. That shows up like this. You see then glamour, that one says fast. I have another occurrence for fast. And then you have very well health, that's fast as well. If we actually were to scrutinize this, even though it looks fairly generic, you'll see here a dermatologist advice on how to get rid of a pimple stat. And so it's more focused on dermatologist advice and stat. So if we're to do stats, that obviously reflects fast, and then dermatologist's advice shows up as well. Now, that actually just prompted me to like do this, right? You see here, guess what you have as the feature snippet? It says dermatology. So again, it would be another occurrence that's dermatologist recommended, like that. So we're down to here. You have then a YouTube video, right? The title tag says in 1 day. Write down in 1 day. Again, that's pretty fast. And then you have overnight like this. So I'll write down overnight like that. Generally during this step, I'll take into consideration the I forget what these are called, but these Google rich things. So I'll say, okay, an image carousel exists. And then you can see here 9 things to try when acne won't clear. That's going to be a somewhat distant intent in that it's like things to do when treatment doesn't work. That sounds like what 9 things to try when acne won't clear looks like. Usually during the step, I'll also recommend taking a look at the second and third page, just trying to see if there's any other intents that are being surfaced by Google that are very interesting, that are like starting to bubble up. But in this particular case, I'd like to save that for a live example on a piece of content or keyword that somebody in the audience would like to rank better for or get some additional insights into. Okay, so you can see here, we've mapped out the front page search intent. In step 3, what we want to do is bucket together the common themes that you see from your intent. All right, well, I've already gone ahead and done this while I was doing search intent discovery. And you could imagine that, right, there's 7 of these ideas that people want to get rid of pimples as soon as possible, like that. You can imagine there are 2 ideas of this getting rid of pimples using natural or home remedies, like that. There's 2 that show up where it's dermatologist recommended. So just dermatologist recommended. And then there's 1 idea that shows up when treatment doesn't work. So the whole point of what I'm trying to illustrate in this particular example boils down to this. If you wanted to go after this topic, how to get rid of pimples, the best way to think about it is that you have about 70% of a shot to break into the front page should you serve this particular intent. You have about 20% of a shot to break into the front page should you service that intent, and you have about 20% here. I know this doesn't add up to 100%, but this is roughly then how it all maps out, right? So if you wanted to break into the front page for how to get rid of pimples, you would want to bet your chips in this idea that people want to know how to get rid of pimples as quickly as possible. Obviously, you can blend together, mix and match some of these intents. It's not as cut and dry as saying, okay, I need 4 different pieces of content, right? You can see here, this one's dermatology plus fast. This one's natural plus fast. This one's just straight home remedies. And this one, right, would be dermatology plus fast as well. So that's to say that mixing and matching intents, again, based on what the user is most likely to care about, is extremely important in terms of hitting exactly what the user cares about for this particular topic. And should you have created a fairly generic piece of content or just generic topic cluster to hit this particular keyword, well, chances are you would have a difficult time ranking because, again, you're not nailing exactly why the user cares about any given subtopic within this core topic. I want to pause here. Tyler, do we have any comments, questions? At this point, I generally like to just say, hey, why don't we do this exercise live for a keyword or a topic that somebody in the audience cares about?
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to get any suggestions. So anyone who's on the stream right now, feel free to pop in the chat here and let us know if you've got a topic or a keyword that you'd like us to explore. So someone says to get meta and look at best SEO strategies.
Best SEO strategies. All right, I'm gonna just do SEO strategies like this, and
Okay.
then just to keep it a little bit higher level, because generally during this step, you want to map out things at a high level and then explore the granular splits of where the intent could flow. So we're gonna take a look at SEO strategies. I'll do a search intent. You'll see here, this HubSpot says how to create an SEO strategy for 2022. So it's how to create, and you'll notice that it will include templates. I didn't realize that SEO strategies, I guess, had templates, but cool, templates. You see here, 7 simple steps for a solid SEO strategy. That's interesting.
Not great, just solid.
Yeah. Okay, I guess steps to steps. I'm not quite sure what 8 steps. Okay, so clearly it's all about steps, and probably steps and how to create go together. 8 steps to a truly traffic generating. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, these are alluding to, obviously you want to get more traffic, how to create an effective SEO strategy. Okay, how to create an exceptional SEO strategy in 23 steps. Okay, so steps comes out again. And then 14 effective SEO techniques to drive organic traffic. So I guess this is like techniques. 12 ways to have SEO success with Google. 12 ways to have SEO. You can see here that like I typed in SEO strategy, really thinking that I was going to get a lot of other things, but it's all like formulating around like, you know, tips, tricks, steps, techniques, how to create, that sort of thing. 12 ways to have success with Google. I mean, it's very basically just like ways, I guess, how to create an effective, right? So it's how to create 4 pillars of an effective SEO strategy, at least that has SEO strategies in it, like pillars, something like this. And this is just Google's own documentation on search engine optimization starter guide. So it's like SEO starter guide. I would probably note that this is like Google's own thing. You see the related searches. And then we usually take a look at the second page as well. So 9 essential steps to building an SEO strategy. What are the top 3 SEO strategies, basic components, how to maintain your SEO. You see this like indentation. Usually an indentation alludes to the fact that the domain has 2 separate pieces of content that are ranking for separate intents. So how to maintain strong rankings is definitely different than, you know, components of like, you know, getting SEO like started or off the ground. You have beginner's guide to SEO, right? So that's kind of this like SEO starter guide like that. And then you have Wikipedia. Anytime you see Wikipedia showing up in the search, especially like that, it's literally answering what is. And then if I type in search engine optimization like this, you'll notice that we'll get the Wikipedia result always, pretty much without a doubt, back by Googling what is and then whatever Wikipedia is saying. And then you can see here 7 most efficient SEO strategies. So we even get one taste of what is that like shows up. So I mean, that's like roughly what we're seeing in terms of what is ranking for this particular query. And if we're to create a piece of content on this, yeah, you'll notice like examples, SEO strategy template. Yeah, I guess that's why HubSpot has the template that shows up. I would also take a look again at, you know, this, right? So the Google Autocomplete suggestions, I need to refresh this to get that first. Yeah, example and template, right? Kind of show up like this example. And then if I put a space here, for mobile devices and for small businesses for 2022, obviously people care about like the 2022 thing. 2022, there's a lot of 2022, right, that shows up. Everybody's kind of saying 2022. So yeah, and then we can take a look at this SEO strategies like that. So I would say if you wanted to create a piece of content on this, since HubSpot already has template included, we'd probably do something like, how to create an SEO strategy. Again, that was already kind of disparate from best SEO strategies. We're like now talking about how to create an SEO strategy, which again is interesting. We did see one like mention of top SEO strategies, but for the most part, people are like wanting to know how to create an SEO strategy, be like examples included. So, right, the template is already included here. We've seen that people do want example, and then we see that people want examples here. And when we look at this from an exact match perspective, yeah, so you have kind of off-page, white hat, advanced, off-site. So I'd do something like this, and of course we put it like in 2022. How to create a killer SEO strategy in 2022. So that's how we would actually have approached SEO strategies. Again, you said you wanted best SEO strategies, so we can take a look. But you can see here, it's the same, right? How to create an SEO strategy. And if I do how to create an SEO strategy like this, and you get the same thing over here like that. And then you have that SEMrush one that shows up, which is, I think we saw that. Oh, not for best SEO strategies, but a lot of the same results are overlapping between the two. So instead of going best, we would want to do how to create, like step by step, how to create a SEO strategy in 2022, right? Like maybe we have more like, could do like step by step, right? Because people want the steps, and then examples are definitely included. So that kind of brings us to the next portion of creating a piece of content. Now, a lot of people have a lot of different ways. And the reason why we built ClearScope is to help people with the content creation process. So in at least my step form, it'd be run a ClearScope report on the intent that the user actually cares about. So again, for best SEO strategies, what we actually see the majority of people caring about is going to be how to create an SEO strategy. So in this particular step, we would create a ClearScope report on how to create an SEO strategy like this. All right, first, I mean, a lot of you are probably unaware of what ClearScope does, but we started ClearScope about 5.5 years ago in a world where we saw content quality and search engine optimization finally becoming more of the same activity. Now, that sounds nice and all, but what does that actually mean? That's a good question. You can see here in a blog post that Google itself published somewhat recently. They're saying that should a user perform a search for how to cook fish in the oven, Google expects terms related to the search to appear in the result. Concepts like ingredients, recipe, and baked. Now, you can imagine Google's pretty smart. They have a huge database of the known indexable internet. And when people talk about cooking fish in the oven, Google says, yeah, a great piece of content should include ingredients, recipe, and baked. Now, if you didn't have those concepts, Google might take a look at your content, raise its eyebrow, and say, is that actually a good piece of content? Why we built ClearScope then is to answer exactly this question. For any given topic or keyword or intent, what are the most important entities, concepts, and terms related to that particular topic? What ClearScope automates then is we go to Google, we scrape the top 30 ranking pieces of content, and we use natural language processing to understand what the key concepts or entities look like for each piece of content. Now, from a more practical point of view, what you could see is that, right, and we use Google Cloud Natural Language to do some of the natural language processing. You can imagine these natural language processors are doing this type of analysis and saying, okay, the key entities associated with this particular piece of content is SEO, keyword stuffing, optimization, SEO strategy, search engine optimization, whatever that is. So we get all of these recommendations using Google's own natural language processing, and we arm you then with a text editor experience that is designed to give you insights into how to create the most compelling piece of content on how to create an SEO strategy. Again, what we're trying to do here is marry the concept of the art and science of content creation. You can imagine if you're creating a piece of content on how to create an SEO strategy, yeah, you should probably talk about SEO strategy. And because I talked about it, you'll notice ClearScope's going to give me a green check mark and say, okay, but your piece of content still sucks, which it does, right? This is barely a piece of content. So ClearScope's going to be going through real-time assessing how comprehensively I should be addressing the subject matter, but more importantly, it's going to be offering me guidance on how to create the most robust piece of content to address this particular subject. So you'll notice a list of terms over here on the right. They're sortable by importance, which is visually indicated by the dark gray line, numerically indicated should you click on any one of the terms. How ClearScope's able to say something like keyword research is pretty important is because should you take a look at the examples, we'll show you that keyword research was used by close to every top ranking result. Of course, you know, the essential steps in building a winning SEO strategy, you got to perform keyword research or search intent discovery. So you can take a look at that, right? Lots of people are talking about it. You see here on the right, lots of things to help you think through this particular topic. Now, the next step that a lot of people will commonly take is to turn this into a content brief. So in terms of the content brief, the reason why you should consider this is to make sure that your content production process is consistent, right? You're working with maybe a handful of freelance writers, or maybe you are the writer itself, in which case this would look more like an outline like that. So how do you then create the most compelling brief or outline? Well, in general, what a lot of people do is that they'll go and read some of the top ranking search results, compile a list of notes. In ClearScope, all of that is, well, completely automated for you. So you can imagine the most common sections that a brief or an outline can have is going to be a goal, a search intent, a target keyword, secondary keywords, subsections, internal links, external links or citations. It's also going to have questions, and it's going to have maybe a writer, a due date, style, brand, or style guidelines like this. This is the most common sections that you can imagine that a content brief will have. Well, these, right, the writer, the due date, the brand, style guidelines like this, these aren't necessarily going to be things that ClearScope can help with because we don't know what the goal of your content is, right? It could be to help users, let's see here, to help users figure out how to build an effective SEO content strategy, right? And we say for 2022. The search intent, right? A lot of people have a lot of different flavors of what search intent means. The most common prescription is going to be this idea of informational, transactional, commercial, research, whatever. I mean, in my opinion, I don't like this framing, right? It's like, yeah, how to create an SEO strategy. Someone, I guess, is doing research or something like that. That's kind of where I'd put something like this into play, right? It's like, okay, right? A user wants to know, you know, what's working for other people in 2022 with templates and examples. a step-by-step guide. Step-by-step guide is preferred here, right? Because we see steps showing up. So I like to go very deep in terms of making sure that the recommendation is in alignment to what we're seeing users actually care about for this particular strategy. Even for best SEO strategies, we're getting 7 simple steps how to create an effective SEO strategy, right? So users want to know how to create it. A step-by-step guide is preferred. Your writer, your due date, and your brand style guidelines are totally up to how you run your content organization. The target keyword is already defined. In this particular case, right, even though we're trying to target SEO strategies or best SEO strategies, we know that we want to win how to create an SEO strategy and actually understand that should we win how to create an SEO strategy, that's actually how we win SEO strategies and how to create an SEO strategy. The secondary keywords, guess what? They're all over here on the right. If you wanted to add custom terms to ClearScope, you'll notice that you can do that very easily. We might say, yes, you should definitely talk about ClearScope in your piece of content on how to create an SEO strategy. We'll also give you additional suggestions of terms that weren't quite important enough to make the main term list, but are still things that we see showing up in the search engine results. So yeah, these make sense. Broken links, page titles, topic clusters. Yeah, we can add those as well. So your secondary keywords are all automatically taken care of over there. Okay, the subsections, right? How do you want to think about the structure of your piece of content? That, again, is very important to have understood what the user cares about from an intent perspective to begin with, right? So we don't necessarily want to start with, what is an SEO strategy? Now, I'm of the opinion that you can include 1 or 2 sentences about what it is to start, right? It's like an SEO strategy is, figuring out what types of keywords and how valuable they are to your business. Here's how to do it, right? And you just get straight to the point of answering the actual intent of what the user cares about. So yes, we're not going to start with a subsection. We'll start maybe with like 1 to 2 sentences. That's just like, okay, yeah, an SEO strategy is this. But right where we're really going to start is going to be like, okay, but how do you create the most effective SEO content strategy that will win rankings and dominate competitors in 2022, right? So that's why the user is here. And that's what we need to be answering as quickly as possible. ClearScope's then going to help you with the rest of your structure. You can see here, you can sort by heading presence, and ClearScope's going to say, okay, when page SEO was used, we saw it used a very high amount of times within competitive headings, H1s through H6s. So you can see here, get your on-page SEO right, optimize for on-page, create an off-page, okay, right? So obviously, right, okay, so how do you do it? Here's our step-by-step guide, like this. And then, I don't know how many numbers of steps it's going to be yet. And you can imagine here, we'll probably talk about on-page SEO. We'll also probably talk about off-page SEO, like this. Okay, how to create the most effective SEO strategy, right? So we then nailed that one. Obviously, we're going to be talking about keyword research, and then based on everything that we just talked about here, we got to be talking about search intent, discovery, and classification as well. Yeah, we want to take into consideration conversions. So we'll probably talk about, how to measure, SEO conversions like that. Off-page SEO, that's where link building belongs, like that. And then you can imagine like on-page SEO, it's going to be where technical SEO belongs. So you can very quickly knock out all of the different sections. Another way that you can think about grouping these is going to be with ClearScope's semantic grouping. What we're doing here is that we're looking at the distance of usage of each one of the terms with each of the other terms that we're recommending. So meta descriptions, when it's used, it's closely used with alt text and anchor text. So you can imagine, right, that belongs in technical SEO, meta descriptions, alt text, anchor text, like that. And we can take a look at this, right? Backlinks, web pages, infographics, right? I mean, people use infographics for link building. So that kind of belongs in this particular section here. Have SERP, SEMrush. You can kind of look at these, right? And you see now like ranking factors, bounce rate, load time. So we might then want to talk about this concept of user engagement metrics. And that's going to be something that users or Google is going to care about in the algorithm, right? Algorithm, like that. So we can then further use the semantic grouping to subcategorize the different types of sections that we should be building in ClearScope. Next place that a lot of people, this is more common, is that you're going to go and you're going to say, okay, well, how is my competitors talking about it, right? The importance of it, what SEO strategy must have, all that stuff. And then you're going to jot the notes down over here. Oh, it's a lot of context switching between screens, and you might have a bajillion tabs open. In ClearScope, you can just click on this outline tab over here, and we're going to say, okay, well, this is exactly how HubSpot has structured their piece of content. You can notice that, yes, they do start with that. What is an SEO strategy, right? Then, oh yeah, mobile SEO, right? Mobile SEO is kind of like a on-page, like technical sort of thing. Maybe it should be in its own thing, mobile SEO, like this. In any case, you can see exactly how everybody else is structuring their pieces of content. Use that to generate some ideas that you might be looking to do within your piece of content. You can see then everybody else's content structures over here on the right. Last place that we're going to look is going to be the research tab. Research tab comes with four distinct sections on what you should cover. So themes are going to be ClearScope looking at the top 100 search results, analyzing title tags, meta descriptions, related searches, and saying, okay, directionally speaking, you should be nailing each one of these themes. If you click on each one of them, we'll show you how they're specifically used in competitive heading structures, right? So focus on the content design, audit your existing content, measure your content success, get back content backlinks, keywords, right? Make sure you have a list of long tail keywords, create a list of keywords. Again, all of this just makes a ton of sense. Questions are going to come from Google's People Also Ask. So what is the best strategy for SEO? What is the best SEO strategy? I guess the time that we ran this ClearScope, this is slightly different. So, right, if we Googled how to create an SEO, for 2021, it's what you get here. Obviously, it's 2022 now, so people are going to care about that. This is very handy then, right over there. We'll augment the questions, give you some more using GPT-3, some cool new natural language generation technology, which is, again, what a lot of people are talking about. It's about AI-generated content that we can cover near the end. I know we're near the end, but you can answer those questions, right? Well, people will be like, make sure to answer these questions throughout the article. Or you can just simply take these questions and put them inside, again, the relevant subsections that they should belong. You'll see here, common citations. So these are going to be people linking out to these particular resources. In this particular case, since we're talking about how to create an SEO strategy, a lot of people might be talking about the tools recommended, right? And that's where we'd say, okay, lots of people are linking out to SEMrush. Obviously, I'm going to put in ClearScope, kind of flags there. You see Ahrefs as well. You see here, right, Google Business, get listed on Google, like that. I don't know why Best Dentist near me is showing up, but you can imagine this could be a local SEO. You want local SEO, you want to get your business listed on Google Business by creating a business profile. So create Google Business profile. That should definitely link out to Google Business. So you have them, all of these, to help you think through what you should be citing in terms of your external links or citations. We have then the last section. It's going to be links out to Quora, Wikipedia, and Reddit. And that's going to be, well, people just discussing how to create an effective SEO strategy, what strategies should you need to follow for beginners, right? All that stuff. So you can do some additional research there. In terms of internal links, the way that we think about internal links currently at ClearScope is that each one of these entities are basically an internal link idea. Now, if we're to be doing this for ClearScope, what you can do is an advanced search operator like this, siteclearscope.io. This will get you any domain's range of URLs, and then we can put in a term recommendation like that. Let's see here. Great, now a piece of content on ClearScope that says good content starts with keyword research. So you can imagine if we're trying to make some internal link recommendations, we can say keyword research, and we can link out to this. So at least in a ClearScope way, it's a site:/domain.com or IM, and then insert a term. And then ClearScope will, or not ClearScope, Google will always return what it believes to be the most relevant piece of content on that domain that matches that particular term. So we have the citations as well, which we kind of did right over here like that. And you can see, right, this is now half art, half science, right? We've kind of needed to infer that when somebody searches SEO strategy, they actually want to know how to create an SEO strategy. Then, right, we're obviously looking to create the most robust piece of content possible that answers this particular thing. And ClearScope, right, is that half science that says, hey, yeah, you should be talking about search volume. If you don't talk about it, chances are your piece of content is conceptually missing some stuff. And the more of the terms that you use, it'll reflect over here. Also say, hey, look, you should talk about it in terms of like about 3,300 words. And you got then all of this. It's now just the next step would be to flesh out the piece of content and publish. So run the ClearScope report, right, in 4A, build content outline and brief. And then 5, flesh out the outline / brief. And then in 6, publish the content and wait. So that's kind of the process that we're recommending in terms of marrying together the art and science of content creation. I'll pause there. I know we have like 7 minutes left. Tyler, any questions, comments, things that we should be diving deeper into?
Yeah, well, first of all, Bernard, thank you so much. I think this is super helpful. And you know, one thing that I just want to draw attention to is I think, you know, the way that you're demonstrating ClearScope and sort of, as you said, the science part of this is very similar to the way that our team does it as well, right? It's like we think of the science part as really giving us like direction and structure. But obviously what we didn't cover here today is, you know, the actual writing part, which is the art, right? Which is where you say, okay, I know what topics I need to cover. I know generally what I need to sort of talk about directionally and how I sort of best serve the reader based on search intent. But obviously there's a lot of creativity that still goes into the content creation itself and writing that content and turning that into something valuable and engaging for the user. So I think that's super valuable. Just make that point clear to everyone.
Totally. Yeah, we're going to run into a world where natural language generation is going to offset a certain set of content, and the originality and perspectives that you can bring that are unique to the table are going to be more valuable than they've ever been. So I think that, yes, you know, robots are going to automate a set of content. More specifically, if we wanted to be, you know, very precise, what natural language generation technologies are good at doing is inferring high probability outcomes. In a more simplistic like way of saying it, I can ask GPT-3, which is the most commonly used natural language generation technology, who's the first president of America? And GPT-3 has ingested enough documentation that says first president America, George Washington, right? Like 99.9999999% certainty. And so it's going to say George Washington. So that's to say AI content is going to be really good for definitions, what is facts and history, because everybody has agreed that that is that, right? And so, of course, when these natural language generation technologies are looking at high likelihood outcomes in terms of probability, they're going to know, apples are green and red, that blah, 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 because that's what goes together. But when it comes to more like current events or things that like are not fleshed out in human like knowledge, right? If we're to get more like, what's good, or philosophically, is this okay? Then that's where you're going to see all kinds of garbled whatever come out of these natural language generation tools, because right, the world is split. 50% say yes, this is good, 50% say no, that's bad, right? And that's where you're going to see all this like weird like just noise that comes out. And that's where I think SEO is heading, where people want unique points of view. They want to know like, what do you think and what makes you qualified to talk about this? And that's going to be very interesting to see shake out over the next like few years.
Yeah. I think even just looking at this example, and we do have a couple of questions, by the way, I'll get to those in just a second here from the audience. And if anyone else has additional questions, please toss them out. We got a couple minutes here with Bernard left. But I was just going to say, like, I think this is a great example of that, right? So as we sort of identified, as you're going through this process, part of this article about SEO strategy is going to talk about keyword research, right? But it doesn't tell you what your opinion should be about how to conduct keyword research or how to evaluate keywords, or some of the specific nuance. And that's where you get to, again, sort of apply that creativity, put your company's specific spin on it, or whatever, makes your content unique, makes it engaging, makes it special. I think of ClearScope as almost like the baseline, right? It's like, okay, here's what we're starting with. Here's what we know we need to address these topics to even like be on the court. So then from there, how do we expand this and make it more engaging, more interesting? How do we inject our opinions and our thoughts and our ideas into that?
Totally. Yeah. Good example right here is just if you Google the Google AMP, right? Like Google's ranking is dead, can go to hell. These used to be higher up and they got pushed down by mostly Google related results. But yeah, right. It's like, right, Doug, people want to know why it sucks because it sucks. Anyways.
So we actually had two questions that were sort of similar. So Daniel was wondering, we talked briefly about the people also ask, and I know that gets pulled into ClearScope as well. Daniel's wondering, like, should you actually just go and make articles specifically targeting those queries?
If you had infinite resources, absolutely. Yeah, so I didn't really get a chance to talk about this, but basically user engagement signals is what Google like is grading your content on. And I'm like loosely coining this ranch style SEO, which is to say in the past, Brian Dean, skyscraper, more content is better. However, right, we're seeing here, Google AMP can go to hell, or best SEO strategies, how to create an SEO strategy. So my view is that you can split each one of these like very subtopics within what you're writing about. And in this particular case, is Google AMP, when should I use it, what it is, right? You could literally create 3 separate pieces of content on it. And that's actually how you win indented results. That's actually how you win multiple spots on Google. And also that's how you win head topics, by actually having an opinion, right? What are the benefits? Does it have benefits? Here's what experts have to say. I tried it and here's my experience, right? These are different intents that a user could care about. So if you care deeply about a certain topic, yeah, create as many separate intents as possible, right? Like, this is good. Is it good? People say it's good. Here's what I think, right? And it all, as long as, right, you're doing that. Now, a natural follow-up is like, will I be cannibalizing my keywords? And I think that there is actually, people say keyword cannibalization is bad. I say that search intent cannibalization is bad. But as long as you're targeting different intents, it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then just to kind of bring that full circle, right? So I think the way that you sort of analyze that is by looking at the search results. So if you actually type that question into Google and look at what shows, is it the same things that already showed for the main query, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yep. And then this is sort of a related follow-up, but this person was wondering about sort of adding those questions. So like, I guess on the flip side, another execution of this would be to kind of scrape that the people also ask and add it as like an FAQ or something to the end of your content, let's say. Is that something that you'd recommend, or how would you view that?
Yeah, I mean, the best way to do it is that you do like, what is Google AMP, like this, and then you'll see probably exactly almost the same things showing up, right? AMP on Google, like that. What is AMP? You even see Google AMP can go to hell, right? So this is what, and then is Google AMP discontinued, like that, and then Google AMP is dead, right? Is dead. And so, right, that's what you see over here. So this is distinctly different, though. If we look at what is Google AMP, it got a fair set of what you would expect from the top results, like this. You even have that Wikipedia, the word stream, same things that you see showing up over here. Actually, the word stream's not showing up. Anyways, but is it discontinued? Got pretty different stuff. So I'd say, okay, looking at this, we would want, what is Google AMP? And we can approach it and be like, what is Google AMP? Is it still relevant? And then you probably want a separate piece of content that's like, Google AMP like is discontinued. Here's what you should do like instead, or they're discontinuing it. So that's how I would look at it, right? Is looking at SERP similarity in terms of overlap and say, okay, are the same sets of results showing up? And basically, there's a loose rule of thumb, but if you see like 2 or 3 of the same results showing up, then chances are you don't need a separate piece of content. If it's 2 or below of the overlap, then you should create a separate piece of content, because that's actually how you do this. Like, get that indented search result is serve 2 separate intents.
Yeah. Great. That's really helpful. Bernard, do you have just a couple more minutes here? We got one more question I'd love to jump into if you've got a minute. Okay, great.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, thanks all for sticking with us here. So yeah, Nia is wondering, so let's say you have a keyword with decent search volume, but Google is ranking loosely related pages that don't seem to match the intent. Do you consider that an opportunity, or is that a problem and you avoid it?
Oh yeah, that would be a big opportunity in my mind. I usually will bring up this example. I'll just show my screen right over here. It's going to be bone broth like this, right? People don't want to know what is bone broth. They want to know how to make it, right? And so basically what we're seeing here is that you don't want to try to force your way, right? People want to know how to make it, or how to make it with different kitchenware, or how to make it in an Instant Pot like that, right? So if we do, how to make bone broth, we'll see, right, a lot of the same search results that showed up over here, fork spoon like this. And then even deeper, right, if we do Instant Pot like that, we'll see, right, how to make Instant Pot bone broth, which is what you see showing up right over here like this. So that's where you need to get kind of nitty gritty in terms of understanding the value to your business, right? Maybe you sell bone broth, and all of a sudden, right, you want to rank for bone broth, but what people care about when they search bone broth is not buying bone broth from you, but wanting to make it. So here's where we'd say, okay, well, create the piece of content on how to make bone broth, even create it for each of the different kitchen appliances, like Instant Pot. And then, somewhere in your body of content, be like, sick and tired of making bone broth yourself, like buy it from us, right? So that's to say, if you want to win in SEO, you have to hit the right intents that the user cares about, or else you're not going to win. So in my opinion, if you're investing in SEO to begin with, you want to rank for things. And, sometimes they go off in terms of, business relevance. And that's where you just have to make the judgment call. Like, is this something still so important to me that even though it's not getting my agenda across, I'm still going to write a piece of content on it, and then somehow promote my product or service within it. I think that's what you have to do if you want to win in SEO.
Yeah. I think it's funny too, because I think about, clients that will come to you and say, hey, our goal is, we want to rank #1 for this keyword. And sometimes they haven't considered that level of nuance, right? So they might say, like, we want to rank #1 for bone broth. And you might say, well, actually you should rank for, bone broth for sale, or like whatever, some other like specific keyword. That's a
right.
better intent, better match. Yeah.
So it's more of like I
was gonna say, yeah, I think to answer your question, I think, generally speaking, it's going to be pretty hard to swim upstream, if you will, against the intent that Google is displaying. So even if intuitively your sense is that the intent should be X, but when you Google it, the results are clearly demonstrating intent Y, then you probably will need to match that same intent to rank, would be my assumption.
Yeah, you'll want to match it if you want the fastest way to rank. And then you want to create, of course, your own pages that drive your agenda. And over time, as you have content that ranks for that topic, you're going to notice this idea that people are calling topical authority start to play a role, because Google sees that you have high ranking content for a related topic. They're more convinced that your other related pieces of content should also rank better. So I'd say let's just take the shortcuts, even though it might not match exactly what you care about. Just win search traffic, and then know that in the future, Google is going to reward your related pages of content with search traffic, because it sees you as a topic authority within that particular realm of keyword that you're looking to rank for.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Great sort of parting advice there. Well, Bernard, thank you again so much for taking the time today. Really, really appreciate it. I think this was a super awesome session. Folks, if you have questions, Bernard is a member of Top of the Funnel, so you can grab him there. You can also find him on Twitter. Here's his Twitter handle, Bernard. He's got the J, the middle initial, so don't miss that. And then I just wanted to give a quick shout out. I know, Bernard, we touched briefly on your SEO in 2022 deck that we wanted to make available. So here's a link for anyone on the stream here. If you hit up this bit.ly link, it's going to take you to the deck that he referenced about how SEO works in 2022, and some sort of additional deeper dive stuff around some of these topics like topical authority and search intent, etc. Again, Bernard, thank you so much. Any final thoughts, questions, anything for the folks on the stream?
No, I'm just honored, that you all took the time. I'm super glad to be here. Ping me in Top of the Funnel, ping me on Twitter if you have any questions, thoughts. I'm pretty open about just helping everybody that I can think through their SEO strategies.
That's awesome. Well, again, thank you, Bernard, and thank you to the ClearScope team for your support of Top of the Funnel. And my last final pitch here is, if you're not, again, a member of Top of the Funnel, join us there, yesoptimist.com/tofu. All right, y'all. Well, see you all on the next stream. Thank you again, Bernard, and hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Take care.
Cheers.